Okay, all right. Well, I think we're ready to go ahead and get started. Well, first of all, let me welcome everyone to today's discussion on the 10 questions for embracing the defense sector's new normal. And of course, when we talk new normal, we're talking in the COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 world. My name is Major General Retired Brent Baker from the United States Air Force. I'm the VP of PTC's Federal Aerospace and Defense Business. With me today, I'm very fortunate to have my colleague, Alex Daly. He's head of the federal strategy with PTC, and we work together. In this short video and discussion, we're going to take a look at the 10 questions many of our customers are grappling with in the post-COVID world. And I like to think of this in three ways. These are questions that we're asking, questions that you should be asking, and these are definitely questions that we're hearing from our customers. So next slide. So when we have these discussions, we always like to think or talk about the bottom line up front. And so we've got 3 points here that we really want to cover first and foremost. And the first one, it's really clear to us that the emphasis on remote work is here to stay due to the efficiencies gained alone. And then also this COVID-19 has really been an accelerator of a trend that was already in motion for knowledge workers. And when we say knowledge workers, we're talking basically people that work in front of computers all day, who are 25% of the global workforce. And we also believe cloud and SaaS will play a critical role here. Secondly, frontline workers, who comprise the other 75% of workers, also have an unprecedented opportunity to use technology to regain knowledge to retain knowledge and perform tasks more efficiently. Augmented reality will play a critical role here as well. Alex?
And the other factors at play in the global macro picture aren't slowing down with COVID-19 either. And that includes things like all of the threats coming from near-peer competitors, either in artificial intelligence or maybe in hypersonics, or how do we service foreign military sales contracts overseas, and R&D budgets, which are constrained and at actually historic lows, or the retiring workforce question, which is the constant issue in our sector. And also, despite the 15% unemployment rate in the broader economy right now, the defense sector is undergoing actually a hiring surge in many areas, and firms are basically rebalancing portfolios out of commercial to defense.
Great points, Alex. But as we get ready to continue, let me just give a little background on PTC. If we can go to the PTC slide, we think it's just important for you to have a little update or a little bit of knowledge of who we are. So, PTC, we're an industrial software company, about $1.2 billion in annual revenue, of which about $250 million or so yearly comes in the federal aerospace and defense business. We also have a very robust set of industrial software platforms, everything from computer-aided design, product lifecycle management, and we're really excited about some of our new and exciting technology around the Internet of Things, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, machine learning. We're a cloud service provider as well. And what's really important to this audience, in particular around the DoD and OEM space, is we've taken our software solutions and we've laid those across the SCORE model, which is a supply chain operations reference model, which is the DoD standard. And a lot of OEMs use that really to understand their digital tapestry. So with that as a little bit of a background just on who we are and PTC, let's go ahead and dive now into really these questions, which is really the meat of this presentation. And the first one I'd like to talk about is, remote work. You hear a lot about remote work today. Especially challenging right now are the capabilities for document management requirements, CAD, computer-aided design, data management, and workflow. How can our teams get the same richness and functionality for enterprise systems like PLM in the home office as they have when they go into the office or on-prem? That's a key question. The next question is the factory environment. Our manufacturing facilities are slowly coming back online. And of course, everyone's very excited about that. But social distancing will mean fewer people on the floor. So we are going to need greater automation. The key question here is, can we use IoT, the Internet of Things, to monitor equipment in real time and predict failures on machines before they happen? That leads me to the next third question that we're hearing a lot from our customers as well, and that's in the area of skills management. Alex mentioned it earlier. We've been facing the retiring workforce problem for years, and we hear this across all industry. But COVID-19 is now forcing social distancing in our maintenance depots. So similar to manufacturing facilities, this will mean fewer people on the floor, and all of them will need to learn new skills, new tasks. So the question is, can we use AR technology to capture the knowledge and insight of one worker and then use that to immediately train many other workers? Another great question on the next slide is program management. Which programs are most at risk due to supply chain issues? I spent many years in the supply chain business, and I don't think I've at another time, at least in my experience, where I've heard so much discussion about the supply chain. And the question really is, how much of a delay will these issues mean to production? And finally, question 5 that I'll quickly discuss is the supply chain itself. There are so many issues that are just swirling around the supply chain. Some questions are, how many critical suppliers are currently offline? Are they out of business? Will they ever come back? How many of these solutions or supply chains will be repatriated back to the U.S. or maybe another country? So what are our options for alternative or additional sourcing for our supply chain?
And that leads to a supplier collaboration question. Are the suppliers who are online able to collaborate effectively, or do we have some kind of a centralized portal for collaboration that covers both acquisition and sustainment functions? And that also is the lead into a cost management discussion, because we may need to invoke a temporary engineering change to the fleet due to all these supply chain shortages that we're facing with the current crisis. And based on our equipment configurations, what will be the cost implications of that change, first on a per unit basis and then across the entire fleet as it is configuration managed out there in the field? And that got us thinking a lot around digital engineering itself. We need to comply with all these new DoD standards for digital engineering that are coming down the pike, and they were issued roughly 2 years ago from OSD, and now all of the services are implementing their own digital engineering individual policies, including things like models-based acquisition or product data, or how are we managing our approach toward readiness? Can we accomplish all of that given our current technology portfolio, or do we need to recalibrate that portfolio? Service parts management is another critical area. Can we lower supply chain risk by optimizing inventories, or even do things like scenario plan for future shocks to ensure that we're not caught off guard again if there's, say, a second wave or a similar event? And then ultimately with product design itself, we're constantly hearing this from our customers. We need more agility in product design, especially for geographically dispersed teams, which is a question that's even more flashing red right now with the current crisis. And could we use a SaaS-based product development platform that includes things like not just CAD or workflows, but also parallel processes, or how do I do bill of materials management, or even real-time design reviews?
So it's interesting. We've covered, these 10 questions that we're hearing from our customers, and they're all very important. And I think sometimes if you look at that, it can almost be overwhelming. But a couple of points I would bring is, one, I think a lot of these trends were already happening, but the COVID-19 world, and we believe the post-COVID-19 world, has really accelerated some of these new requirements. But so the good news is PTC has a lot of capabilities that can directly address these questions in terms of what we are calling, not just surviving, but thriving skills that organizations will need to refine and to be successful in this new environment. And if we can go to the slide that's got kind of the 4 major areas, we think this really comes down in 4 areas before we elaborate, and that's workforce mobility and resilient, resiliency, being resilient, having a flexible and innovative supply chain. There's frontline workers now, they have to be connected and it has to be in a collaborative world. And then we believe remote monitoring of products, factory solutions is going to be very important as well.
Right. So in terms of specific solutions, first is augmented reality. On the training side, one PTC offering uses augmented reality and voice and video to naturally capture work instructions from experts that can be immediately conveyed to an entire workforce. So it's not a one-to-one conveyance, it's a one-to-many. And having a visual and auditory experience versus a traditional 2D experience dramatically cuts training times. This is especially critical for highly complex configured product sets that you see in the defense sector. So that's the first point of all of this. The second point is in the product development space itself. Anticipating the market need for engineering software moving to SaaS, PTC acquired Onshape in late 2019. And of course, that's before this current crisis happened, well before it. But the urgency of the crisis has also accelerated our adoption of this technology writ large across the sectors. With Onshape, users can access their software anywhere, anytime. SaaS is the architecture of the new normal. That is one absolute clear thing that we've seen coming out of the crisis. And so that's the first kind of piece to all of this. The second piece is with PTC's traditional PLM offering, which is called Windchill. It's not only web enabled, but was specifically architected to be that way from its beginning over 20 years ago. And that means that knowledge workers can immediately use it while working from home. In fact, we've had several of our government customers inquiring about doing precisely that. And then finally is the supply chain itself. PTC's Servigistics capability uses data science to predict what service parts needs will be in the future. And that's been particularly helpful during the crisis because it mitigates supply chain challenges before they intensify by helping you to decide what to stock and where to place it, when to move it, or procure or repair different equipment in order to achieve the highest readiness level.
Alex, thanks for that. So we'll just put up the final slide with our contact information. We want to thank you so much today for joining us. We obviously could go into a lot of great deeper depth around each question, but if you have questions, you'd like to know more about our thoughts on these questions, and then also what PTC brings to the table for this new normal, please reach out to either Alex or myself. We'd love to hear from you. And Alex, I want to thank you and thank the audience for joining us today.